That's Welcome everyone to today's webinar, all about how to grow your social media audience and ultimately how to generate sales leads. My name is Abidesi and my business Hustle Crew sells training around career skills and inclusion skills to employers like the NHS, Amazon, Airbnb. I'm also often hired as a keynote speaker, a public speaker, or as like a brand consultant to create sort of like paid online media for different companies as a thought leader. So over the last few years, I've gained a lot of insight into how to sell to businesses. Also, for 2.5 years, I was a VP in a software company, and I had a six-figure budget where I could sign off different partnerships, bringing in consultants, speakers, and businesses to design and deliver training, to facilitate events. So as a budget holder, I had this incredible opportunity to become a customer. And it was so eye-opening to be a VP and actually learn what goes into decision making and signing off budget. And all of these learnings I have put into this webinar today to give you a better chance of growing your online profile in front of the right people and getting those people to, buy your services and buy your products. So for folks who are just joining, I mentioned that I'm going to be toggling on and off the slides. If you want to have the slides open in front of you all the time, please go to that tiny URL link I've just shared in the chat. If you want to let me know where you are in the world, pop it into the chat. I've got lots of questions I'm going to squeeze in that you submitted when you registered, but if a new question pops up as I'm talking, something that's not clear, something that you want to know specifically how to apply to your business based on the stage that you are at right now, please feel free to use the chat and let me know. But otherwise, let's jump into this. Because I've made the deck as well as homework for you to do in your own time, I really want to invite you to just be present in this space. So if you rushed in from another meeting, take this second to just take a deep breath, shake it all off, whatever you came into this space with, because this is your investment in yourself, your future business, and the goals that you want to achieve. And trust me, if I can do it, so can you. A few years ago, I was just another woman in tech. Now I'm someone who can say they've hit, million revenue. They've worked with the biggest global clients, and with no outside funding, no venture capital, just through my own, blood, sweat, and tears. So if I can do it, so can you. And this is your chance to just sit, learn, absorb, and ask the questions that will get you to where you want to go. So if you're not familiar with me and Hustle Crew, as I say, I started this business in 2016. I was fundraising, pitching, going to competitions. No checks were signed or given to me. So I made it my side hustle and kept working in the tech industry. In 2018, I launched my podcast Techish and really started focusing on building my social media profile. And purely from posting on LinkedIn, Instagram, and going on, little podcasts from friends or friends of friends, suddenly I was in Stylist, BBC, Forbes, Financial Times, most influential leaders in tech. I did not work with any PR agencies. I didn't work with any consultants. This was just pure storytelling and grinding away and seeing what worked and what didn't. And then over the course of 2019 and 2020, my business signed six-figure partnerships that allowed us to expand with businesses like the NHS, Sky Comcast, the Mayor of London. And in 2021, we finally hit that milestone of seven-figure revenue. And in 2022, I started working for myself full time. So this is what we're going to cover today. And as I said, the chat is there for you to ask anything that isn't clear in my explanations. The first thing is, why are you even online? I was just at a dinner with my founder friends. We have this dinner every month. And if you don't have your own sort of like founders network or freelancers network, highly encourage you to tap into one or build one. And in this dinner, we all started lamenting about how exhausting it is to be on social media. Are you on Threads? Are you on TikTok? Are you, interacting? Are your clients following you? Are you following your potential acquirers or investors? And we started to realize, if you don't have a clear purpose for why you're going to be online, it's very easy to get distracted. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about the tools that I am using within my business to make online sustainable for us so that we can generate leads without growing our anxiety, I'm going to talk to you about experiments, which are so essential because the algorithms are always changing. So if you want to make sure that your next event or your new product launch is getting in front of the right customers, you need to be constantly adapting the way you interact on the different platforms so that you can get the algorithm to boost your content. And then finally, I'm going to make sure I leave at least the last 10 minutes or so to run through the questions you submitted in your registration forms, and also answer any questions that you put into the chat. So hopefully that sounds good. I know not everyone here is speaking English as a first language, so if you need me to slow down at any point, let me know. I'm speaking fast purely because I'm excited about this topic, but also because there's a lot of content and value I want to deliver to you in the time we're together. So again, just as a reminder, this deck is available via the tiny URL link. Scroll to the top and you'll see it in the chat. And this deck also has homework for you to do afterwards. So don't worry too much about packing it all in into your notes now. So let's jump into this. Why are you even online? It's so important for you to have a clear purpose. Are you online because you're solving a complex problem and you need to explain what it is to customers? Are you online because no one really knows who you are? Maybe you've been an operator in a business in a different industry, or you just haven't been a creator or an influencer. So this is your chance to build credibility so you can get the keynote speaking engagement, so you can charge $1,000 an hour for consulting. Maybe you're just online because you're trying to build that muscle of talking about yourself and talking about your business so it doesn't feel icky anymore and it doesn't feel salesy anymore. Whatever it is, write it on a post-it, stick it on your laptop, and when you are feeling that reluctance to experiment, to create, to build, to talk about your work online, remind yourself of that purpose. Now, if that is still not clear enough to you, learn from your competitors. There must be someone out there who is selling to the same group of people as you, the same type of businesses. There must be someone out there who you aspire to be. What are they doing? What works for them? If I think of the women that I always looked up to, Charmadean Reed of the Stack World, Sophia Amoroso of Nasty Gal and Girl Boss, Ryan Hoover of Product Hunt, who I had the pleasure of working for. I saw the way that these powerful, influential people were interacting with their community, talking about what they were curious about, talking about the projects they wanted to work on. And there's definitely elements of that I've copied, I've tweaked, but there are also aspects of what they were doing that I thought, well, that doesn't really resonate with me, and I don't think that really resonates with my audience. So looking at what other people are doing isn't just about inspiration, it's also about looking at what doesn't feel authentic to you and your business. But make sure that when you do identify something you feel works, you're trying it out, you're experimenting with it. The other thing that you need to do is, if you are online to drive sales, new consulting work, new coaching clients, new downloads of your resource guide, whatever it is, make sure that every single space where you are online is pointing people in the right direction. When I was a VP at a company and people were pitching things to me, sometimes I would follow the link in their signature, their email signature, jump onto their homepage and have no idea how to actually find out more about their service, no idea how to find out more about their products. I wasn't being pointed in the direction I needed to go to get the information that I need. So this is why purpose, number one, at the bottom of the slide. Make your profile serve your goals. What are you asking of your customers? What information are you giving to your customers? If you want people to join you on an intro call or join you on your next event, it should be clear and obvious how they do that, where they go, what they click on. Another thing you need to think about is, what metric, what measure, what data point will show you that your online presence is working to help you reach your sales goals, to help you grow your business. A lot of us are obsessed with volume. How many followers do I have? How many likes did that post get? How many views did that post get? Volume doesn't mean anything if people aren't actually engaging in the way you want them to. You could have 1 million followers and 0 sales, right? Are you actually converting that attention into a conversation, into the name of a decision maker, into the email address of a budget holder at the company you want to work with? And if you're not, what can you do to convert that attention into that necessary next step? If the next step is an email address, how are you going to get that email address? If the necessary next step is a call where you can pitch someone, how are you going to spark that up? How are you going to mention that? If the next step is bringing someone into your webinar or getting someone to download your guide so that you can see, they can see your value, how are you nudging them along that journey? You know, people look at something for a mere few seconds before they scroll on to the next post, open the next app. So it's really important that you think about how you're nudging people along that journey. The final thing is, make sure you get that balance right. So if you look on the bottom right corner, we can't always be promoting people, you know, selling to people. You want to also make sure you're doing that trust building as well. And you can do that, again, looking at the examples of people you admire, through fun stuff, through vulnerability, or through, you know, insight and analysis. So keep experimenting, and let me know it works for you. If you have any questions about this, or you want to know how to apply this to your business, please jump into the chat, and let me know. So numbers for you to think about here. I'm all about the data. How will you know your online efforts are working? In my case of my business, I like to track the number of inquiries that are coming into my contact form. So every month, how many new people are saying, hey, I've seen what you do and I'm really interested to work with you. It can also be the number of, you know, webinar attendees. We run webinars all the time about our inclusion education. Did we have 50 people sign up, 100 people sign up, 300 people sign up? You know, sales is a numbers game. The more people in the room, the higher the probability one of those people spends money with me. So it's really important for you to decide what are those numbers that make your time online worth it and valuable to you. And it's really important that you track these numbers closely. You know, you might be a very specialist product. So it's not even about who is in the room and how many of them are in the room. It's about, is that right person in the room? Maybe you just need that right specific decision maker in a company because you're so niche to be there. The other thing to think about is, how can you make being online sustainable? Because a lot of people will say, you know, oh gosh, I can't be bothered to like post 2 TikToks a day, 3 LinkedIn posts a day. Well, that's fine. You know, a lot of us here, we're solo founders, we're freelancers, we're consultants. You know, we're a one man, woman band, you know, a one person show. We can't compete with the Nikes of the world. So, what is sustainable for you? You know, if you are juggling childcare, life, mental health, travel, family, plus sales, operations, marketing, finance, admin, you know, what is realistic for you, and make sure that you can stay consistent with that. If that's once a day, once a week, be consistent. And we're going to go on to tools in a moment, but one of the things that I use is tools like Canva, Later, you know, or Buffer. But I use tools where I can repurpose content across multiple channels. So I can write one Instagram post reflecting on a recent event I attended, and then I can splice up that post so that it also goes out on X, tweak the copy a little bit so it also goes out on LinkedIn and gets engagement. You know, use a scheduling tool so that that same thing can now go out on my stories a day later or 2 days later for anyone that missed it. So it's really important that you are leaning into tools, and these tools are not hard, right? Like anything, there's a ramp up period, but you do get used to them the more you use them. And the best thing about these tools is that they give you analytics. So you can really start to understand when your audience are online and which of your posts they're engaging with the most. So my homework for you on this topic, why are you even online? Spend a bit of time later clarifying your why. What is the purpose of you being on LinkedIn? What is the purpose of you being on Instagram? Once you've defined that, it might give you more clarity on which social media platforms are the most relevant for you. I have not been active on TikTok recently. Well, one, because I get trolled there all the time, anytime I talk about, you know, anti-racism, or gender bias. But secondly, I'm selling to businesses. And heads of HR, heads of engineering, heads of recruitment, they're not on TikTok Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. They're on LinkedIn. Maybe they're on Instagram. A lot of them are, you know, women in their 30s, 40s. They're on Instagram. So I'm trying to meet my audience where they're at. And that's given me clarity about where I need to be. Another thing for you to do in your homework is ensure that all actions are in service of that purpose. You know, really stay focused to that why. Finally, identify, you know, again, how you are measuring success. And the final bit of homework I want to talk to you about is your customer's perfect journey. So I'm actually going to like stop screen sharing for a second because I think this perfect journey analogy is so important and often crucially missed by business owners. So I want you to take a second and think about one of the best customer experiences you've ever had. And it doesn't have to be something that you discovered online. It might be a hotel that you stayed at. It might be, the time you got upgraded on a flight. It might be a retreat that you booked. But I just want you to think of a customer journey that you went on, an experience that you had where you really rate it, you thought it was so worth the money, so worth the value, you were telling all your friends and family about it, you can't wait to do it again. I would call that a perfect journey. That is a customer experience where, from the second you were aware of the opportunity to the minute you invested in it, to the time you were actually there, to the time after the experience, you had good vibes and positive energy around it. Now, many of us as founders are not really thinking about the perfect journey that a sales lead goes on. We're there on LinkedIn trying to like find potential customers, and then suddenly we're in our emails trying to like re-engage people in conversations, and then suddenly a booking comes through and we deliver that booking, and then we're just on to the next thing. But what would be really powerful for you in terms of generating not just sales, but repeat sales is to actually start thinking, if someone does find out about me on LinkedIn and then does actually send me a message on LinkedIn, or click from LinkedIn through to my website and fill out my contact form, what would be the perfect journey for them to then go on as they understand more about me, eventually negotiate a sale, eventually experience that sale. After the sale, what are going to be all the different touch points? Spend a bit of time actually trying to design that perfect journey, and then ask yourself if the way you have structured all of your communications and all of your systems and tools supports that perfect journey and helps you make that perfect journey scalable. It might be something that you have to keep returning to, this idea of your customer's perfect journey from that first online interaction to sale to repeat customer. It's certainly something that we revisit all the time in my business. But if you start thinking about that, it can start to shape how you set yourself up online. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. So the next section is, how can you make it sustainable? Well, the first thing to say is be realistic about your strengths and weaknesses and time management. If you are better at writing captions than editing videos, then focus on platforms where that's okay. LinkedIn doesn't need you to make a video. It's not TikTok, it's not YouTube. You have to get comfortable using tools like Canva, design tools like Canva, stock image libraries like Pexels or Unsplash, and AI tools like ChatGPT. It's like how in the past people had to get comfortable moving from a typewriter to a laptop. People had to get comfortable moving from radio ads to TV ads. We are in the age of online. And so if you are serious about being a business owner, you must adapt to the reality of being online. You also have to accept that these tools cost money. Yes, there are free versions, and that's fine. But again, if you are a small team or a solo person, it is still cheaper to invest in software tools than to hire a whole human being to manually create this stuff for you. So sometimes you just need to bite the bullet. And I certainly went on that journey myself. So the first thing I'll say is time blocking is key. I spent most of my Monday creating content and scheduling it for the week ahead. That is what works for me, because it's really difficult for me to jump from a sales meeting back into Canva. I also use scheduling tools so that I don't need to be on the app all day, every day, starting my mornings, scheduling stuff. You can do that in bulk. LinkedIn lets you schedule natively through the app. Instagram lets you schedule natively through the app. Alternatively, you can use Later or Buffer to schedule everything from posts to stories online on your laptop or your computer. Make sure that you are actually using these tools regularly, because they're changing all the time. And also, make sure that you're reviewing the analytics so that you can actually like see what's working and what isn't. Are you posting at the right time? For example, later.com was suggesting that I always post at 10 a.m. And I was doing that for a while, but then I wasn't really getting engagement. Then I actually clicked into the analytics page, and it shows you how many followers are online at every hour. And I realized that there was double the amount of followers online for me at 9 p.m. So I just switched my posting schedule up, and I immediately saw a boost in engagement, more DMs, more click-throughs to my events. So, use the analytics in your favor, and again, make it sustainable. I'm not saying you have to obsessively check them every hour or every day, but maybe every week you just review, the best times to post again and make sure that you are using them. Here are some of the numbers that I think are really important to review in terms of making it sustainable. Look at your total phone screen time. So as I mentioned to you, I have a founders dinner, and we literally went through this exercise like, okay, everyone get out your phone, show me your screen time, and show me your screen time per social media app. So how many hours a day average are you on Instagram? How many hours a day average are you on LinkedIn? And I don't know about all of you guys, but I really don't want to be on those apps longer than 1 hour, right? They're only 24 hours in a day. If 8 of those hours you're sleeping, that leaves you 16. One of those hours you're at the gym, you're down to 15. 2 or 3 of those hours you're like eating or chilling. So, you're literally down to like 12 hours. Maybe you do 6 hours of sales calls. You've only got 6 hours left for like socializing, fun, etc. Do you really want to be spending 50% of your like free time scrolling on an app made by a billionaire who doesn't care about you, whose kids don't even use these apps? Think about it. So, I'm really trying to keep my screen time quite low. And so I think, really try to challenge yourself and think, what is a sustainable amount for me to be on these apps before it's affecting my sleeping? It's affecting my ability to feel secure in myself and my future. Scientists have proven that these apps make us anxious, make us insecure. Exposure to blue light affects how we sleep. It affects our circadian rhythm. So use the tools that allow you to curb your use. Go on the web version if you have to. And yeah, just, make it work for you. But also don't beat yourself up if you like end up doom scrolling at like, 1 a.m. because you had a long day and that's how you unwind. I'm not judging. The next thing to say is, find that time to really just create and schedule. So if it takes you roughly 2 hours to make, 3 days of posts or 2 days of posts, hold yourself accountable to blocking out that 2 hours. Make it a non-negotiable in your calendar. Of course, urgent things will always come up. But if you're serious about generating a healthy pipeline, if you're serious about, letting customers know about what you do and converting that attention into sales, you need to make time for this. You will not grow your business unless you are making time for marketing, unless you are making time for storytelling. A lot of this work is also middle of the funnel. There might be a client who you haven't heard from in a month, a year, but they're following you. They're watching what you're doing. So you have to remember that this work is also like keeping those leads warm. The final thing to say is it's really important that you tailor this to each platform. So what works on Instagram won't necessarily work on TikTok or LinkedIn. Look at those platforms, look at what's going viral in terms of the tone, the language, the imagery, and make sure that you, even if you are duplicating content, you are like adapting it and tweaking it to make it make sense for that audience. So here's a bit of homework for you to do in your own time. I think it's really important for you to just spend time looking at how your competitors and role models behave on the different social media platforms and decide which of those social media platforms has your most relevant customers and what type of content performs best on there. As an example, I was doing a lot of work sharing stories about bias in AI, bias in tech, bias in recruitment, because I do bias awareness training. And what I noticed was the news story analysis was just not going anywhere on Instagram. It was working really well on LinkedIn, but it just wasn't working really well on Instagram. So then I realized if I instead do a reel where I explain the story, wow, suddenly the engagement was popping off. So that's an example of how you use the same piece of content, but you adapt it to the platform. So just try and stay visible on, what's working and what isn't. What helps for me, as I said, is like really just like using my calendar to block out time. So if you can do that, I highly recommend it. And as I said, the more time you spend on the platform that your customers are on, the more you'll realize what works. Instagram has templates like outfit of the day. LinkedIn has templates like 3 things I wish I knew before I started a business. Whatever it is, copy those templates, copy those memes, and see how people respond and react. Again, if you have questions, this is what the chat is for. Hopefully this is all making sense. Um, but yeah, I invite you to ask questions. I also invite you to share reflections. Is this resonating? Is there anything more you want me to expand on? Please let me know. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about the experiments that you are launching. Everything that we've spoken about so far is about going to the platforms where your customers are, copying the content templates that you have seen work with, your competitors and your sources of inspiration. But we know that the algorithms are always changing, right? There are engineers at LinkedIn, Meta, TikTok, X, who are constantly adapting to serve their main revenue stream, which is advertisers, right? Just like we're trying to sell to our customers, Facebook, they're trying to sell to their advertisers, and LinkedIn are trying to sell to advertisers. And that means that what works today on these platforms will not necessarily work a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. So it's really important that you stay close to those success metrics. You stay close to that why. Why are you on the platform in the first place? What purpose is it serving for you and your business? And decide, how often am I going to review what is and isn't working? So, for a small business like mine, we don't really need to do this more than every month, or if we're really busy delivering client work, every quarter. But it's important that we do go through the exercise, because you will inevitably start to see a drop off. You will inevitably start to see posts that used to get, tens or, hundreds of likes suddenly only getting one or two. Or if you look at the views, seeing that something that used to get hundreds of views is now hardly getting any. So as soon as you start to see those signs, it's time for you to go back to the drawing board and back to the analytics. Now, a lot of us are making assumptions, and that's really what our social media is about. We assume that our customers will be on this platform and see it. We assume that customers see that content and want to work with us. We assume that there's enough information provided online for customers to know how to get in touch with us, to work with us. Now, a few months into your journey, working with different platforms, using these tactics, are your assumptions proving accurate? Or do you need to challenge those assumptions? If you are not generating the sales that you want to, if your efforts are not equaling the output that you expect, something is broken in your assumptions. Maybe you're not in the right place. Maybe you're not doing enough. Maybe you're not using the right message. Maybe you're not nudging people along that perfect journey well enough. Whatever it is, whether you want to use a coach, whether you want to, use other founders, whatever it is, get someone else to join you at a table and kind of say, help me break this down, because I've assumed XYZ, but nothing is changing, nothing is working. Where do you think my assumptions could be off? And then when you tweak those assumptions, show that in how you post. Are you now posting a different style of content? Are you doing more human interest stories now as opposed to industry stuff? Are you tagging people more proactively? Are you following up specifically in the comments, going to those people via a DM, sending them a personalized message? Maybe it's you're assuming that people will come to you when really the assumption is wrong. Maybe you need to go more directly, pointedly to them. And this is what I mean when I'm saying be proactive. Who's actually engaging with your content, and what do you do next? If someone's engaging with your content, are you actually like starting an intimate conversation with them and saying, hey, I noticed you engaged with my post. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Does your company do this? Are you interested in why? Yes, it's time consuming. Yes, it might lead to nothing, but it could lead to something. And if you're not busy and you have the time, that's the kind of work you should be doing to perfect your sales and perfect your social media stories. The final thing I'll say is your KPIs will show you if you're on the right track or not, right? So using myself as an example, there was a time where I was not generating anywhere as many leads as I had done the month before. And this was not seasonality, right? I know that people go away in August for the school holidays, or, Europe shuts down, whatever. This wasn't a seasonality thing. I analyzed my social media and I saw that we hadn't been posting as much because we were really busy and our marketing person had left. And what we were posting just wasn't engaging. So I had to do this huge overhaul. We're going to post more, we're going to post different things. Suddenly the leads went back up again. So, when I say look at your KPIs, data doesn't lie. Data doesn't lie. You have to stare it in the face and go, wow, no one showed up to that event. What did we do wrong? The topic was wrong. The timing was wrong. We didn't market it enough. And if you feel that your KPIs aren't helpful, like, oh, well, this KPI actually is quite positive, even though we didn't make any money or even though we didn't get any leads, it's not the right KPI. Key performance indicator. These are data points that show you the health of your business, whether the processes are performing. So if they're not nudging you to change or adapt, if they're not revealing the weaknesses of the business, they're not serving you. So I'm just going to pause and jump into the questions and feedback. Anthony saying, love the part of getting grounded in my customer's perfect journey. You made me think of the before, during, after when I bought a bicycle and gear a few years ago. Absolutely. Just because we're selling ideas or thoughts doesn't mean we can't learn from the offline retail world. In my team, I talk a lot about airlines because, most of us have had the privilege of going on a plane, and some of us have even had the privilege of flying business class. Maybe a client booked you on a business class trip. And what I love about that is that before you even get on the plane, you're already getting emailed like, would you like a car to come and pick you up? Would you like to use our lounge? When you get to the lounge, people are like, would you like champagne? Would you like tea? When you get on the plane, someone's giving you a warm towel. All these lovely things are happening. Then you get off the plane and your luggage comes out first. Then when you get home, they're already emailing you saying, when will you fly with us again? Here are all these beautiful destinations we go to that we'd love to take you to. And what's also really nice about the airline analogy is that on the back end, there are checklists holding everyone accountable to make that journey happen, right? So the marketing team have a checklist of like, have they received that message? Have they received that message? When you get to the lounge, the customer experience team have a checklist, like, have they been offered a welcome drink? Have they been offered a magazine? When you get on the plane, the pilots and the air hostesses are doing their checklists, safety checklists, menu checklists, and then you get off the plane. And again, ground staff are going through that checklist. Did they get their luggage? Okay, great. Again, the marketing team come back into play. Have we followed up to get feedback? Have we followed up to do that aftercare? So I love that you can take examples, from this bicycle purchase, but all of you can think of a delightful customer experience and unpack what made it delightful and think about how you can codify those moments of delight into your own processes. So sticking with perfect journey, Anthony asks, what is an example of an aha and change you made after reviewing your customer's perfect journey? So I think as I am a training provider, as I am a service provider, I actually also go on a lot of training. I go on a lot of workshops, and I actually went on a retreat. And what I loved about the retreat was I was signposted all along before I even arrived. This retreat was in France, to all the different things that would be happening. But what was really nice was that when I got there, there were also more surprises that I hadn't been told about, which I thought was really lovely. Whether that was like the little goodie bag I was given, special talks that weren't put into the agenda, little surprises. And there was like a real effort to sort of like create some magic in that experience. And that made me realize, you might be selling something like training to businesses, but that doesn't mean that you can't add those like intimate touches where the people you're interacting with really feel like they've been heard and really feel like they're being supported. So off the back of that, we started doing things where we would actually anticipate, what does someone have to do when they decide to work with Hustle Crew? And again, I could use my own experiences as a VP. If I decide to bring in a training provider or, an external speaker, I still have to do the work of creating all of the internal, comms, the invites, bringing everyone in, and I have to do that myself. So one of the things that Hustle Crew started to do was actually give our clients an info pack, and that info pack contained all the things that they had to do. So instead of having to create the calendar invite with copy that they've made up, we give 4 or 5 different examples of how you can describe Hustle Crew's work that you can just copy and paste into that calendar invite. We even create FAQs, like, oh, if people ask these questions about the training or about, what it's like, here are all the answers that you can just copy and paste, assets that they can use on social media, resources. We really just try to put ourselves in the customer's shoes and think, how can we make it as easy as possible for them to, work with us? and still do their job without eating into their time. So yeah, that was a moment that we had. Thanks for the question. Please keep the questions coming. Claire asks, I see a lot about polls being useful on LinkedIn for business. Is this true? And in your opinion, for more personal brand? It really just depends. Polls can be a really good way for you to test things. When I started my podcast, we didn't have a name. So we put a poll on Twitter, like, do you prefer this name or that name? And the name Techish won. And that's how we, got the name for our podcast. I see people who I admire using polls to help decide what they're going to post about next or what they're going to write in their blog next. So I think I've seen applications both in business and in personal brand. Businesses use it to say, what event should we do next? So it really depends. I would say try out polls, and if your community are engaging with them, bring them into the mix of posts that you do. But they shouldn't be the only kind of post that you do. What I'm finding works really well on LinkedIn at the moment, because I think it is just that place, whether you like it or not, is that real like personal reflection stuff. So that real sort of soft skills, for lack of a better word, personal development stuff. This is the moment when I realized, or this is how I overcame a fear, a challenge, or an insecurity. That seems to be resonating really well. So I'll just jump back into the slides. Please keep the questions coming. The numbers, for you to focus on here are really the numbers that you decide, whether that's sales leads, whether that's inquiries. It's for you to decide what shows your sales is working, what shows your social media efforts are working. Again, be proactive with the follow-up. So you might want to track things like how many of these LinkedIn conversations are converting into a call, how many of these calls are converting into a booking, or if you're selling, a product online, how many of these, conversations are converting into a purchase. And as I said, it does sometimes mean doing things that don't scale. And I think that's okay, right? If you are a freelancer, a small business owner for now, you have to do these, intimate things to eventually find a workflow that you can scale up. But it's these intimate things create long-lasting partnerships. Great. If I think of the people who ended up being some of my biggest clients, the first people that signed six-figure deals with me, for about 2 or 3 years, we would just have informal chats. Nothing would happen. Sometimes we would talk about challenges they were dealing with at work. Sometimes we would just do small talk. But, it was relationship building. It was trust building. And then suddenly the right time and the right opportunity came, and they're like, oh, we can finally collaborate. And as I said, it's really important to identify that period where you're going to actually reflect and then adapt monthly, quarterly, every 6 months. It's really down to you. So my homework for you is to spend a bit of time validating the assumptions you have about your potential customers' online behavior. I already spoke a bit about that, but you just want to make sure you are really checking, are they following the journey that I want them to go on? Are they booking time with me? Are they coming to my events? Are they DMing me? Are they actually, going beyond that low barrier interaction? It doesn't cost much to like a post or repost something, but can you actually engage them in a conversation? And this is where you have to do those things that don't scale. That's where you have to actually go onto their profile, go onto their company page, do a bit of research on them. If you are selling recruitment, oh, hey, thanks for getting in touch. You're on the product team. I noticed you're hiring a product intern. I've actually just reposted that in my network. Hope you find someone soon. Would you like to know more about how we help teams like yours recruit? You really got to try and do that little bit of extra work where they go, oh, wow, they've already made that effort to get to know a specific challenge I'm facing. Yeah, let's get on a call. So I wanted to spend a bit of time to answer some of the questions that you've posed. And again, for all of you who are listening so intently, really, really grateful, really appreciate that. If you do have any other questions or reflections, please pop them into the chat. Also, if you're just stuck on something, like you're not quite sure how to take all this info you've gained and put it into action, let me know. You might have noticed that there is a link in the bottom left corner here. I'd really love to get your feedback. I'm hoping to do more of these webinars in the weeks to come. So if you want to share some feedback with me, that would be great. And I'm going to pick a random person who shares feedback and give them a 20-minute call where we can actually go through some of this homework together and put it into action. But yeah, so Here are some of the questions that were submitted in your registration forms. Someone said, can you give me an example of actually making the ask of someone on social media, a potential customer? And this I thought was a really interesting question because the ask is different at different stages of the journey, right? If I think of when I was recruited, or rather when Hustle Crew was hired to work for the NHS, I didn't walk up to the NHS and say, hi, will you pay us 6 figures to design and deliver a training program? Of course not. It starts out with, hey, can we make some time to talk about some of the challenges you're facing, in your team, some of the anti-racism work that you would like to have done. That was the first stage ask. Then the next ask is, can we design a pilot program, a trial run for you to see if the anti-racism training we design is helpful for you? And then the next ask is, can we iterate on that trial run and put some more workshops together and see if those are successful? And then it builds up to the ask of, great, can we now roll out these workshops to 200 employees? So if you're unsure what the ask is, you actually need to zoom out and go back another layer and think about, what is the challenge I am helping my clients solve? And what is the journey that they are going on before they even come to me? And then when they do come to me and ask for help, what journey will we go on together so that they can actually get money and budget signed off to work together? And once that happens, what is the journey that we will engage in to actually deliver that value? And then when that happens, how will I continue that relationship so I can keep being their, client, and, for the long run, or like they can keep being my client for the long run? So the ask is different at every stage, and the asks depend on who you're working with, what they are dealing with, the timing at which you are in your relationship with them. At the very, very beginning, the ask is, please read my social media post. And if you like it, comment. And if someone does comment, then the ask is, hey, I noticed, you are a decision maker at this company. I would love to learn more about your team. Then the ask is, if you're not the right person for me to speak to, can you put me in touch with the right person to speak to? So the ask keeps evolving. And if that's not clear, please let me know. Thank you, Winnie, for your comment. This is so insightful, very practical. Learning about the full journey is a light bulb moment for me, and I will take that back to look at it. Great, I'm so happy. Another person had asked in the questions submitted, how did you get your sales from 0 to 1 million? And this again is all about the building blocks, that make up a sustainable business and that make up a social media profile. There's no such thing as an overnight success, right? You'll see Beyonce's name on the slide. Even she started performing as a child. She wasn't even double-digit ages before she took to the stage. And I think it's really important for you to see the journey of entrepreneurship as a very long-term and consistent one. And I see a lot of parallels between entrepreneurs and athletes and successful performers, because it's the type of game where you just have to keep doing it. And some days you're going to be amazing and some days you're not going to be amazing. And some days you don't want to do it, but you have to do it because that is the practice and that is the discipline and that is the work. So when you start as a business, you have to decide, how much do I sell my product or service for, and who do I sell it to? And one of the things that really helped my business grow was, one, switching, originally from a consumer oriented coaching, community business to a B2B business, because the value of sales grew. But another thing that helped my business grow was also moving from like one-off bits of work with employers to year-long bits of work, multi-year programs. That's how I could actually increase the deal size, right? So if you're wondering, how can I go from 0 to 1 million? First, you have to be realistic about how quickly you can get there. And it might not be in year 1, it might be in year 3, or it might be in year 10. But then you have to ask, am I selling to the right people to make 1 million, right? So just as an example, and I like to use examples, let's go to the world of fashion, okay? If you go to Primark, how many items does Primark need to sell before it's going to make 1 million pounds? It needs to sell a lot, because the average price of a product is very low. But if you go to Chanel, how many pieces does Chanel need to sell before they make a million. I mean, one Chanel handbag, the classic, whatever, quilted leather is like 8 grand, 10 grand if you do all the customizations. So Chanel needs to sell fewer of those luxury handbags to hit 1 million. And that's the same with your business, right? If you are selling a low price item, it's going to take you a while to get there. But if you're actually selling a high price, high ticket item, you might get there a lot quicker. And that might make you start to think differently about the types of clients you go after and the way you structure the work that you do. Just jumping back into the comments, Bukola saying, I love how practical this webinar is with the homework tips as well. Thank you so much. My pleasure. Happy to help. This is what I do. So let's just jump back into the questions. Someone said, what do you do if you hate social media? I had to be really blunt on this. Build a time machine and go back to the world where social media didn't exist. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but when I see Beyonce herself going on Instagram to promote her products, when I see Rihanna herself, billionaire woman that she is, coming online to promote her products, I realize if you are not online, you are not where the attention is. And if you are not where the attention is, you will not be bringing attention to the work that you do, to the product that you sell, to the service that you sell. So if you hate social media, either make enough money that you can hire someone to do it for you, which will still require you to be on social media, or build a time machine, go back to the world where social media didn't exist, and buy a billboard or make a radio jingle or whatever. But if you are selling in 2024 in UK, US, most of the modern world, most of the world that I am in, where people have smartphones, where people are on social media, you need to find people where they're at. You need to find your customers where they're at. And you need to remember that your customer, let's say if you're selling to businesses, let's say you're selling training to an HR manager, your HR manager still needs to convince the head of HR, and the head of HR might still need to convince the chief financial officer. When I was a VP at Brandwatch, even though I had a 6-figure budget that I was allowed to allocate to different partnerships and different consultants, I still had an approval chain. So if I was like, I'm going to bring in this consultant, that then needed to be signed off by chief people officer, then CEO, then chief financial officer. So what they did a lot of the times, like, I've never heard of this consultant. I've Googled them. I can't find anything. Then I need to build up that case for them. I need to do the education. I need to show them who that is. If you have a social media presence, a decision maker is never going to say, oh, I don't know who they are. I don't want to sign off, this budget, because they'll Google you and they'll find the amazing work you do, or they'll see your posts and then they'll be like, okay, yeah, cool, let's work with them. But if they can't, then they're just going to be like, well, let's just work with this person. We've always worked with them. We already know who they are. So, social media, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And you have to remember, it's also a way for people to, decision makers specifically, trust you and give you money. Someone also said, what if you find sales icky? And I'm just going to say the same argument, right? If you find sales icky, maybe you should get a job. Gosh, that's mean, right? Maybe I'm being too harsh there. But the thing is, capitalism is this system that makes us move capital from one place to another, from a customer to your business, right? From someone else's wallet into yours. And the only way for that transaction to happen is by you initiating it. And there are different ways to do it, right? I'm not saying you need to go for the cold, hard sell, lose 10 pounds in 10 days. But a transaction is happening whether you like it or not. And I don't think there should be any shame in that. I genuinely believe in the value that I deliver. I genuinely believe in the impact that I make. And if you don't believe me, you can go on the testimonials page of my website. If you don't believe me, you can type my name into Google and read about me in the Financial Times or Forbes or The Guardian. So I no longer feel icky demanding a fee to grace your stage, to sit behind a camera and make content for your brand, to design and deliver workshops for your investors or your board or your leadership team. There's nothing icky about gaining the value that I deserve for the value that I deliver. That is the world that we live in. And, I think people who feel icky about sales, often come from historically marginalized backgrounds where we have been socialized to believe we're not worthy, where we've been made to feel like the other or the outsider, where, when someone's like, what's your hourly rate? We suddenly get a bit nervous and clam up. I know engineers in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, members of dominant social groups who won't even blink when they say, I charge $1,000 an hour. Oh, and what if you work a full day? Well, then you just times the hour, right, by how many hours you need me. Like, no hesitation. So I also think it's about really building that belief in yourself and the work that you do. And don't feel guilty for capitalism because, you didn't invent it. So final couple questions here. Converting sales leads. It's really important to understand how you can keep those conversations alive once you have told someone about what you do, told them the price, and now you're kind of waiting to hear if they can get the budget or if they're interested. And what works for me in converting sales leads really is giving away free value. I love to do webinars. I love to send out resources. I love to, write our weekly newsletter. I love to storytell on LinkedIn. You just need people to remember that you are there and remember that you are doing this work. And when the timing is right, when the budget does come through, when the problem is urgent, they will see you on their feed or they will see you in your event, and they will come to you. I see a question from Winnie there, which I will answer in a quick second. Final shout out on the feedback form. If you want to win a 20-minute consulting call with me, go on to tinyurl.com/Abadesi class feedback. Just before I answer the final questions, I also just want to let you know about a special offer that ends today. So if you found this really valuable and practical, but you kind of want to go another layer deeper, I'm going to offer you 3 one-on-one coaching sessions, as well as 3 live masterclasses. Similar to this, I'm going to be diving into topics like the perfect journey, but actually helping you map them across all of your socials, across your current website, inquiries form. You'll be doing this alongside like-minded founders so that you can stay accountable even when these live sessions end. It's called Play School Accelerator. It's the 2nd year I'm doing this. We are actually kicking off on Monday. As I said, this is a chance for you to really get everything you need from like a teardown of your sales process, an insight into the tools that I'm using to manage my CRM, my pipeline, the templates that I use to engage and re-engage clients. As much honest feedback as I can give you on your customer journey, as well as some of those mindset challenges you might be dealing with. I know for a lot of us, it's not the practicalities of the work, it's more the inner critics that are blocking us from doing it. And if you are in London, where most of us are, we're going to have a wrap-up event at the end of this 2-week accelerator where you can have your headshots taken by a professional photographer. So if this sounds like something you are interested in, today only you get 20% off. Head to hustlecrew.co/play school, and hopefully I'll see you in a coaching session next week. But yeah, back to the final questions. Winnie's saying, you talk about publication features and you share how some of that was organic. Any tips on how to strategically get some of those features? So the first thing I'll say is it's really important to be online talking about issues. So if you want to talk about being a working mom, if you want to talk about navigating the workplace as a woman of color, share those stories on LinkedIn, because it's usually your opinion that journalists want to bring into their story, not the research, not the facts. So if you're already speaking about these experiences, sharing those opinions online, it's then really important that you can either start following journalists on Twitter or on LinkedIn so that they have you in their network, or you can, even if you want to, ping some of those journalists. So if they're posting online, just comment on their post like, wow, that's really interesting. That reminds me of something that happened to me at work. So yeah, I really think it's not about doing anything like specific to get the press pieces. Just do that social media brand building, do that storytelling about your opinions, your honest opinions, maybe they're unpopular opinions, whatever, but share them brutally and honestly. And wherever you can, interact with journalists on those platforms, and you might notice that they're suddenly like, hey, would you be happy sharing that opinion in an article I'm writing? So Bukola says, would you still recommend Play School for someone who has a full-time day job but is wanting to dial up their side hustle? Absolutely. Look, Hustle Crew only became my full-time job 2 years ago, so I'm not even going to front and pretend like I've been on this full-time founder journey for a long time. I was working as a VP when we hit 7-figure revenue. So one of the things about Play School is that all of the live masterclasses are happening over lunch hour. So if you're in the UK, 1 p.m. British Summer Time, one of them is at 12:30, and the one-on-one coaching is based on your availability. So these are sessions that can happen in the morning before you go to work, in the evening when you're offline, whatever makes sense for you. So if you found today's session valuable, if the way I'm communicating these things is resonating, and now you want that extra layer of accountability and that extra layer of specificity, then I would definitely encourage you to apply. And like I said, you get 20% off if you apply today. So yeah, hopefully see you there, Bukola. Now, Anthony is asking, you mentioned CRM. Which one do you use and why? Great question. I have cycled through so many. At the moment, what I really, really, really love is Notion. And I've got a special offer for a few months of free Notion for anyone that does join the Play School Accelerator. But it's just a great place to, not just have CRM, which is a standard database, but I love that you can play around with different views. So me and my team can have the view that we like, but it's also integrating into other places where we're managing projects, tracking tasks. So Notion over the last few years has slowly become our main home, moving away from Google Workspaces. But always happy to talk about systems and tools, and maybe that will be my next webinar. Like I said, if you didn't give a chance to give me feedback, tinyurl.com/Abadesi class feedback. Also a chance for you to suggest what topics I should cover next. But yeah, otherwise I'm gonna, oh, here we go. Last question. I was about to wrap it up, but someone was very quick with the fingers. Well done. Someone says, what if you're in a role which you love, but you're also setting up a side hustle that you're really passionate about in a completely different industry? How do you go about mixing the two profiles online? I have a lot of friends who've been in that situation, and I've worked with a lot of founders who are in that situation. I think it's really about finding a way for you to see where the crossover is, and that will likely come in your values. So it's not necessarily going to be like, oh my God, I'm building like, a puppy fashion label, but I work as a compliance officer in a financial institution. You might be like, whoa, how are those two things, related? But at the center of them could be like an obsession with fairness, or an obsession with sustainability, or an obsession with the future. So if you want to build your profile in parallel across two different things, do that Venn diagram, and role number one, role number two, what are the values that are in the middle, and what are the interests that are in the middle, but also what are the identity traits and experiences that are in the middle? Is it something about your upbringing, your culture, your background? What is unique to you that makes you want to straddle both of these roles equally and passionately? And that will be the story you tell. And sometimes you can go in one direction where you speak exclusively about your side hustle, and other times you can speak exclusively about your job. People who come from the global majority have often been made to feel like we need to fit in one box and wear one hat, whereas people who come from dominant social groups can do a bazillion different things and everyone celebrates it. So I think it's really, really important for you to have that confidence and courage to put yourself out there authentically in all your different roles, as well as talk about what's in the middle. So hopefully that's helpful. Final minute. The feedback link is tinyurl.com. I'll just put it in the chat as well, /Abadesi class feedback. Final thing for me is a huge thank you. It means so much to me to have everyone show up live, bring the positive energy, bring the questions. This work is not easy, but the fact that you are making time to continue learning, build up your confidence, build up your competence makes me feel very confident that you will succeed. So I just want to say, well done, keep going, you got this, and let's stay in touch, everyone. So yeah, best of luck with everything, and I really hope I'll get to hear from you in some way soon. Keep going, look after yourself, be kind to yourself and each other. I'll email the recording very, very soon. I'm just gonna catch up on all the comments. Aw, so kind, all of you. Hey Dorothy, hey Winnie, Anthony, Stephanie, Claire, Bukola, Carrie. So nice. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.